183 countries in the world and counting. That's the number of countries in the world who recognize that there is only one China, and the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China. On Wednesday, China and the Pacific island nation of Nauru signed a joint communique on the resumption of diplomatic relations. Nauru's move reduces the number of so-called diplomatic allies of the Taiwan region to only a dozen. And it is reported that Tuvalu, another Pacific island nation, will review its relations with Taiwan after the national election, which is expected to take place today. Now, including Nauru, 10 countries have cut formal ties with Taiwan over the past 8 years. The United States, however, expressed disappointment over Nauru's choice. Why? I'm pleased to be joined from Yaren, capital of Nauru, by Riddell Akua, Permanent Secretary at the Government of Nauru, by Yulei, Professor at Shandong University, also Chief Research Fellow of the Research Center for Pacific Island Countries at Liaocheng University, and from Shanghai by Josef Mahoney, Professor at East China Normal University. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. Let me go to Mr. Akua first. It is so rare that we have a guest from the South Pacific from the South Pacific Island country. So the warmest welcome, and of course congratulations on the resumption of diplomatic ties between Nauru and my country. Tell us, is this a good news, a good development for your country, a decision that's taken by the government but supported by the people of Nauru?
Thank you for having me. The announcement that the president made when he made that change to that tie from Taiwan to Nauru to the Republic of China was his amendment for the country. I think it's always been inevitable that Nauru will follow suit following the United Nations resolution. Recently, where the Australian throw down on the asylum seekers in Nauru, that will leave a huge gap in the budget. I would think that the government, to keep stability amongst the people, it will need to fulfill that gap, and it made that transition basically for economic reasons.
Well, we hear, as I mentioned, the reaction from the United States that they are disappointed. They say that Taiwan is a democracy and that the People's Republic of China often make promises in exchange for diplomatic relations, but they don't keep these promises. What is your reaction to the U.S. reaction to the decision of your country?
I would think, because now it's a self-autonomy, U.S. might be disappointed, but I would think that that would be considered prior to making the decision. Everything has been thought out by cabinet prior to moving to China. Even before with the previous government that was boosted, they had inclination of moving to China, and it was only a matter of time. So, but I don't know. I don't know what will be the impact with the U.S. to their aid, but U.S. aid is much to the Micronesian side of the Pacific. We rely basically on Australia, New Zealand, and previously Taiwan. Those are our three main trading partners.
So what is going to happen? What do you foresee that's going to happen to your island, to your people, to your economy now that you resumed diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China?
I would expect that it would not be less. It will be much improvement. There's been promises for the infrastructure. There's much needed work to be done for the infrastructure. We haven't been able to improve our infrastructures. There is climate change. There is mitigation against climate change and seawater rise. There is a need to revamp our power station. The power station has been here for young years, and it's been sustaining population when it hasn't reached this amount. A lot of things have changed since just after the war. And mostly our infrastructures were built during the first era just after the war. And that growth has stagnated. And the population has grown. We have a hospital that can only take up 100 people. There's more people needing to go to the hospital, so that bed has to be vacated practically every day. If you're not well, or you just sort of half well, you'll be vacated, so another person
Yeah.
can occupy the bed. So
Okay.
the hospital needs to be revamped.
Yeah. I
Our
see.
airport, the airport has been there since, yeah.
I
So
see.
that also needs to be refurbished.
Okay, so let me go to Professor Yu Lei. You are based, or you based your study on that part of the world, South Pacific Island nations. How do you look at their concerns? Their primary attention is to improve the economy, is to provide better care for the livelihood of the people, whereas some other people always see relationship through a geopolitical perspective, geopolitical lens. That's my impression. What is yours?
Yeah. In fact, this is quite true in the Pacific Island countries. That I had quite a lot of international conference in Australia, in New Zealand, and in the island countries. And it made me surprised that the scholars from the United States usually impress us that they want to have the hegemonic competition in this area. But the scholars from China impress the islanders that China only wants economic cooperation with the island countries. So in fact, I could have a lot of conversations with the local governmental officials and the entrepreneurs and even the general public. My impression is they do not care about geopolitical competition. They do not care about the hegemonic rivalry. What they care about much is their life. They want a better living standard. And they say that China has a textbook example for living its people out of poverty. If we look at China's economic growth over the last decades, you could find that China's economic growth is a miracle. So they told me they want to learn much from
This is,
China.
yeah.
This is from the local people. Yep.
Yeah, Professor Yu, this is very interesting. However, it seems that the West, led by the United States, are not providing this kind of development opportunities that these countries are needing, and yet they are blaming China for doing so.
You are right. In fact, you see, the Chinese economic assistance and aid focus on the economic development and the growth and the employment. But the United States provide advice not for economic purpose, but for ideological one. It like to training the island officials just for, you see, the law system, the democratic values. This impressed us very much. And you know that we had the international conference. Some experts, scholars from Australia was also complaining about the United States action and moves. They said we need cooperation in the Pacific Island countries. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let me go to Professor Mahoney for your take, looking from a scholarly perspective. Now, the United States, highlighted the fact that Taiwan is a democracy. So Nauru, by switching from Taiwan, the region, to the PRC, seems they are deviating away from democratic values. And they also talk about, China, the People's Republic of China, not keeping its promises. How do you look at these factors that the U.S. is citing to say it's disappointed with Nauru's decision?
Well, I think if we judge countries in terms of fulfilling promises, I think we'll find that China, on average, does a much better job than the U.S. does. There's enough empirical evidence from BRI alone to prove this is true. Above all, when we compare it with America's counter-proposals like Build Back Better or B3W and so on that have produced next to nothing. Now, on the U.S. Being concerned about trying to promote
democracy,
Taiwan, expanding ties with Taiwan, this is the Biden administration's approach, but it's complicated. Officially, the U.S. Adheres itself to the one China policy and doesn't have official diplomatic relations with Taiwan. The fundamental fact is the U.S. itself balances its relationship in favor of the mainland. So why should it criticize anyone else for doing the same? Furthermore, there's a perception in the international community that Biden doesn't really care about Taiwan, that it's just a pawn, as we've noted, in a geostrategic game, and that Biden would sell out Taiwan in a moment if it served his or America's interest. So it's widely understood that the U.S. is serving its own strategic interest, not democratic ideals, and that countries who follow what the U.S. says they should do but doesn't actually do itself, then those countries would poison their own relations with the mainland and possibly be sold out later if the U.S. changes course.
Yeah. Professor Mahoney, does that explain that over the past years during the DPP's rule in Taiwan, 10 countries have cut diplomatic relations with the island, including Sao Tome and Principe, Panama, Dominican Republic, Burkina Faso, El Salvador, Solomon Islands, and Kiribati in the South Pacific, Nicaragua, Honduras, and now Nauru. And people are talking about Tuvalu possibly following that lead. Is that the reason behind this trend, apparent trend, Professor Mahoney?
Well, you know, it's said in some of the press that Nauru was disappointed with the recent election in Taiwan, and that's reason enough, and not simply because the DPP retained the presidency, also because it did so without an absolute majority of voter support, and likewise because it lost control of the legislature. So the political situation in Taiwan is a mess, and you can't be sure which way things will go or whether it represents the will of the people. However, there have also been a number of growing and intersecting trends that are more compelling than the election result. And these include the fact that we're in this new era with new challenges, including climate change, disease outbreaks, and China has shown itself to be a more reliable international partner. Second, as we look towards the future, the U.S. is in a period of decline and keeps flip-flopping between different governance philosophies, while China is stable and still rising. And third, China has offered the world practical development and security solutions. We're 10 years into the BRI now with concrete results. We've got GDI, GSI, and GCI gaining momentum. And so while the U.S. continues to be committed to these older paradigms associated with cultural and financial hegemony, still engaged in armed interventions directly or through proxy wars, still expanding Cold War era blocs or building new ones, the bottom line is that most countries are rational actors. They know that the past is not the solution to the future. They need to make commitments that reflect their interest.
Yeah, and certainly I believe Nauru has made that decision. Once again, congratulations to Nauru and all the very best for your development. I'm pleased to have had as my guests Riddell Akua, Permanent Secretary at the Government of Nauru, Yu Lei, Professor at Shandong University, also Chief Research Fellow of the Research Center for Pacific Island Countries at Liaocheng University, and Joseph Mahoney, Professor at East China Normal University.